invite. So if you're joining us, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining. If you're here, comment and let us know, do you have pet insurance? Because that's what we're talking about today. Do you have pet insurance? I'm curious. And also, are you one of the many, many, many people who are going to be dropped by nationwide pet insurance? So, okay, let's see if I can.
I just requested, please let us know if our sound is good. Okay. We were given some feedback last week that we were, or the week before, that we were too loud.
Okay, I'm trying. I keep
What I
hitting
was too
accept. I keep hitting accept. It's Instagram is so finicky. So finicky. Right?
I do, but not nationwide. That's good news. T. Seymour 04.
Yeah. What do you, if you don't mind, you don't have to, but if you don't mind, what insurance do you have? Because I'm sure people want to know. I know there's, I swear I've hit accept like a dozen times.
I actually do have pet insurance only for my cat because he's a kitten and cat insurance is way cheaper than dog insurance. And I have it through MetLife because I interviewed the CEO of their pet insurance, I guess, branch, and he was fantastic. And I really enjoyed learning what they're doing. And it was really not a big investment. It's about $15 a month. But I do not have insurance for my dog, Kira, because she's 13. So we'll talk about why I don't have pet insurance for a 13-year-old dog, which I think is what most people choose to do.
Yeah, it just keeps telling me you're unable to join on Instagram.
Oh, there we go. I'm in.
You got it? Mm-hmm. Maybe? I don't see you yet.
Yeah, it's accepting me.
There we go.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so I know you told Facebook and YouTube, you do have pet insurance for your cat.
I do.
MetLife.
Yes. Because I interviewed the CEO of MetLife. I actually have plans to interview him again with an attorney on their team. And we're going to talk about what I've asked them to do is provide kind of like a list of the most expensive claims that they've dealt with, right? So that we can talk about kind of what they've seen and when pet insurance really is helpful for these huge claims. And so I do have pet insurance for my cat, sorry. What is happening?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
You're kind of frozen on Instagram, but I'm getting, oh, there.
There. Okay. So I have pet insurance for my cat, not my dog. My dog is 13 years old, so it is very expensive to cover a dog that age.
Yes.
I feel like once my other dogs got to a certain age, I stopped covering all of them. We had gone from like a $90 a month coverage for 4 dogs to like $300 a month. And that was just when we were like, no, that doesn't make any sense. So Thorn Jackie just commented that she has Nationwide. They've always been great, but we're actually talking about Nationwide today and how they canceled about 100,000 pet insurance policies just last month.
Well, so the way I read it is that they're non-renewing. So like over the next year, it will total about 100,000 policies. So I wonder, because it's saying that it's like certain state, I don't, maybe that was in the CBS article. But so I'm wondering if everybody knows yet, or if they're just going to get like 30 days beforehand the non-renewal notice, right? I don't even know if these people know yet.
So they are the nation's biggest provider of pet insurance.
Yeah.
They have thus far canceled about 100,000 animals. So the coverage for that many animals. they will continue to cancel per CBS News through next summer.
Yeah.
Again, I'm frozen.
I can hear you though. Well, I hear you on the computer. That's why. Yeah. So, and Thorn, Jackie says she just submitted a claim today. She's had him for years. That's great. I'm glad you're happy with them. That's
Of course
wonderful. And I hope that they continue to renew your policy as well, because it sounds like you're very happy with it, which is wonderful. So, okay. It is very expensive to get insurance on an older dog, as you were saying.
Very much
So it just didn't make sense for you. Nerva09 says, I have ASPCA. So I think that ASPCA pet insurance was actually named in that CBS article as being like the second most popular. For broad coverage, they were placed at the top of the list. ASPCA was on a list, top of the list for best coverage. So
but
we can talk about
ASPCA doesn't actually insure, right? They are kind of like the third party.
Let's see.
So
That could be.
So it's SPCA Pet Insurance. And who actually is the insurance
like
company?
Who underwrites them?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Let's see.
Because I've heard ads actually on some podcasts where they talk about the ASPCA coverage, and then like they have the legal jargon at the end that says like ASPCA is not an insurance provider.
So underwritten by Independence American Insurance Company.
So this can happen. First of all, let's talk about why it's happening. So this is the first one we're seeing is nationwide dropping 100,000 pets. And they're going to continue through the next year, through next summer. This is what it says on an article published on June 17th by cbsnews.com. And so we're talking about this being, like you said, the beginning of these cancellations. And they're obviously citing the escalating cost of veterinary care. Obviously, insurance companies provide insurance in the hopes they never have to pay out.
Yes.
And
obviously.
With pets, often they are paying out, right? Because pet parents make mistakes. Pets get themselves into trouble. So it's not like, my house in El Paso, we have like flood insurance for like if we have a leak, but we've used it twice in 7 years, right? Like, and actually it's been pretty heavy before that in other houses where there was flooding, we never even used it. So like that's the goal, right? That they not use it every year. But I remember when I had pet insurance for Titan and socks, I was taking socks to the vet every 6 months at least for like a significant UTI with lots of testing and such, because she had a recessed vulva and she needed a surgery that I did way too late. So we ended up costing, I had Pets Best at the time. We ended up costing them a lot, which is probably why they raised our insurance so high from one year to the next.
Yes.
So again, insurance companies, the goal is for you to pay, and then for them to never pay out, right? Like there's a fraction of people who need a payout versus the people who are paying every month or every year. And so as people become better pet parents, there's still a learning curve. We're still making mistakes. Dogs and cats are still getting we talked about choking hazards last week. We've talked about, foods that are not safe for pets. We've talked about a lot of things, a lot of accidents. We've talked about July 4th, dogs getting hit by cars, breaking through their crates and causing injuries to themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So we've talked about all the reasons why pets end up at the vet. And there's a million more. And then those who do have pet insurance are obviously going to be a little more quicker to take their pets to the vet, right? Because you do have coverage. So you're not going to maybe wait and see as long as you would if you didn't have coverage. And with the frequency of use plus the rising costs of veterinary care, it's no wonder that they're saying this is not working out for us. We're not making, the profits off of this product that we want to. And, insurance is a product just like any other. It's like a car, it's like a house. It's like, if we're going to do this, we're going to need to make some good money for doing it. If it's not worth it to us, then it's not worth it to us. And they don't want a little bit of a profit margin. They want a significant profit margin to even, merit the risk of their name and their brand and their time and their effort. So what is causing veterinary costs to rise? Jessica, let's talk about that first and foremost.
Lots of things. Obviously, we all feel inflation, right? It's way higher than most mainstream media is reporting. And it doesn't matter what you're paying for.
Right.
Your electric bill is up, 20, 30%. Your groceries are up 30 something percent. Like everything has increased. And that, on top of the fact that veterinarians are in very high demand, they most of the time, you call and you're not getting an appointment for weeks, maybe more. And it's not because they don't want to see your pet. It's because there aren't enough veterinarians. It's because they have the greatest burnout rate of any profession today. Like it doesn't even, it used to be like air traffic control, and veterinarians have topped that. They are very empathetic people, which is why they got into it to begin with. And so they are so burnt out from people yelling and cussing at them and wanting to help animals, and people not having the funds to pay for the help that is needed. And it's like they're not millionaires, right? Like if we look at all of the professions, they have to charge what they have to charge to keep the doors open. For the most part, they're not billion. And then on top of that, I know we did an episode a while back. I don't even remember the percentage, but like an overwhelming majority of traditional, I think it was closer to like maybe 50% and like something like 75% in ER have all been bought out by big corporations. So exactly. they expect to make a profit, just like you were talking about, just like the insurance company expects to make a certain profit. And so it's built in. Like if you go to an independent veterinarian who has their own practice, there's probably some leeway there, right? Like that person gets to decide what they do and what they charge. And they go to the shelters and help out, and they do community service, you know what I mean? Like, whereas, so we have all of these factors coupled with the fact that for many, many decades at this point, we're not raising our animals holistically. I mean, you and I are, but you know what I mean? Like overwhelmingly the population,
the majority of people
we're not raising our animals holistically. They're eating ultra processed food day in and day out for their entire lives. They are getting vaccinated every year when that is the most unscientific thing I have ever heard of. And I mean, we're literally putting neurotoxins on their bodies or in their bodies every month because we don't want to deal with fleas and ticks. And I mean, it is astronomical, the things that we're doing to our pets unintentionally, thinking we're doing a good job. Like, don't get me wrong, people think they're doing
the advice of the professionals that we look to for.
So advice. It's like, it's just the perfect storm.
It is. And I do think that the biggest thing is, the corporate buyouts of veterinary medicine are changing veterinary medicine forever. They are no longer ever going to come down. So like, even, it's like how we talk about inflation and how like everything went up, right? Like those prices are not coming down.
No.
The prices are now not, like, we just need to get used to paying $8-9 for, a carton of milk.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a carton of eggs. We just have to get used to that. $12 if they're pasture raised, like that's just what they cost now. And that's the same case for veterinary medicine. It's not coming down.
Mm-mm.
And as long as veterinary practices keep getting gobbled up, those prices are going to continue to soar. They're not going to even stabilize, in my opinion.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no. I mean, that's not the model for anything. I mean, it's like I remember when we first moved here, the water. So the community I live in, and this is kind of a tangent, but it proves your point. The community I live in the city of Georgetown, and we get our water from Georgetown. However, they sell the water to Leander, who then delivers it back to Georgetown residents. So we're paying like all these additional fees for this water to be, which it isn't even being passed around. It's just ones and zeros on the computer, right? And there was some like work that needed to be done to the lines, so they were imposing a temporary like assessment fee. Those never go away. They're never temporary. They always like if there is an increase, it doesn't matter what they say. Like, oh, this is temporary. This is only for 12 months. This is never, ever, ever.
The fuel surcharge that we paid last summer because gas was so high, or the summer before, whichever one it was, time flies for me sometimes. But, you know, when things got super expensive at the gas pump, there was a lot of companies adding that fuel surcharge, you know, like Uber and all these, even like shipping. And now gas prices are not what they were then. And that fuel surcharge is still there, right? It's still more expensive than probably they would like to see it. But, you know, if you raised it to meet that price, then it should have been adjusted to meet the prices today. But that's not going to happen. Thorn Jackie says her annual visit for her dog 5 years ago was $500. Now it's over $700, and that does not include meds. I totally believe that. And Jackie, are you going to an independent veterinarian, a corporate veterinarian, like a VCA or something like that? Do you even know? Because some vets are kind of transitioning very, very, you know, carefully, and they're kind of being sneaky about it. Right.
She says independent.
So, okay, perfect. That's, and you know what? And that's kind of, I feel like the independent vets are reluctantly raising prices because their costs are going up too. Like, just like you said, electrical, gas, water, meds, payroll is all going up. I mean, I don't know where you are, Jackie, but if your minimum wage went up, then everybody's wages at that practice went up. So of course we've got to keep up with that stuff. And Amy H says when she has two comments here. I've heard before, you pay for years and then you get a non-renewal, that the money spent in monthly premium would be better put into savings account. And that's one of the things we are going to talk about today, Amy. When you talk about vaccines and doing a titer, say for rabies, she asks, is that allowed specifically for rabies since you have to report it? Jessica and I have different takes on this. So Jessica, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think first of all, you need to have a relationship with your veterinarian. And this is something we have talked about so many times and something that so many people overlook. It's just a service to so many people. But the reality is your pets are part of your family. And so your veterinarian is part of your care team, and you are the head of the care team. And so having a relationship with your veterinarian is very important, which is another reason why I'm not a huge fan of these big corporate veterinary offices, especially ones like Banfield, who you literally can go in 1 month to the next and you're not going to see the same people in there. You're not building a relationship. So having a relationship with your veterinarian, first and foremost, that's key. That's foundational. And being able to have conversations with your veterinarian, and not just, this is what I want, so this is what you're going to do kind of conversations, but understanding the science behind titer testing and antibodies being in the body and memory cells. And if your veterinarian understands all that, which they should, they're scientists, right? And also, interestingly, I don't remember who I said this to the other day. I don't know if it was something we were doing or not, Isabel, but Dr. Kosher, Dr. Lori Kosher with Healthy Dog Workshop, She came on my podcast, the Pet Parenting Reset, and we did an entire episode just on titer testing. And she said what's really, really interesting to her is that she's had to have the rabies vaccine multiple times in her career from being exposed to rabid animals. And she says what's really interesting to her is that the veterinary board will accept a titer for her to not have to be revaccinated. But then they act like they don't understand what it is for pets. So having a veterinarian on board, having your veterinarian on board, having intelligent back and forth conversation and knowing the science behind it, and they can write exemption letters. They can say, you know what, we titered your pet. And this isn't true in all states, but in many states it is. We titered your pet. They have levels of antibody. They are showing antibody levels so that we know that an immune response was created in the body. And then they can waive future. And again, this is going to be a little bit different in every state, but having this open dialogue with your veterinarian is the first step. That's my thought.
Okay. Well, first of all, my apologies. So yesterday we were supposed to do this at 5 p.m. my time. I'm in Miami, which is why you see my mom's Yadro collection here. This is not my house. But we had snakes coming out of a drain in my mom's house yesterday. Snakes in a drain instead of snakes on a plane. And so I called Jessica because I was sick and this was chaos. And now, even though this was a reschedule, now there's chaos. The plumber just walked in to check the drain. That dog that's barking may actually end up being my dog again, by the way. Totally different conversation.
Oh, wow.
We'll talk about that in a future live. But my apologies for the chaos that just ensued and my kids coming up and like staring at me and me having to mute. But when it comes to rabies titers, I have tried so hard for my old dogs because I started, I've been married for almost 10 years now, and we both started with two dogs of our own, and both of them, with the exception of Kira, who's the only one that's still alive now, they were all like middle-aged. So like we kept doing the 3-year vaccine for rabies, and then when they got older, we moved to El Paso and we found a vet that I adore. We asked her about titers and she was unfamiliar. So she called her mentor, who's a very, well-respected veterinarian and professor at a veterinary school. And he had never heard of Save the Pets?
Yeah, that Dr. John Robb. I don't know how active he is anymore. I think he got beat up.
This was a few years ago. Yeah. So he was the Connecticut vet that was like dosing the rabies vaccine and all vaccines, I think, for the size of the pet, which to me is exactly as we should be doing. I am 5'1", and when I get a vaccine versus when my husband gets one, who's 6'2", 210 pounds, I know that I wish that we had different vaccines because I'm like half his size. So for me, it's like common sense. And this doctor, this veterinarian in Connecticut, who is now retired, I'm sure, was dosing it. He got in trouble for dosing them because he wasn't doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing as far as the AVMA is concerned. So he almost lost his license. And then he started offering online, I think it's called Save the Pets, titer testing. So you would go to your local veterinarian, they would take a blood sample and they would send it in. There was like a kit, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I asked my veterinarian about that and she was not comfortable. So she asked her mentor about it. He did not know anything about it. And they both were like, nah, we're not doing that. So I never got to titer my dogs. The one that I really wanted to titer was Titan because he did not have a bite history. He did not, he was such a peaceful soul that I wasn't worried about anything like that. With Socks, who had a bite history and was really unpredictable, and that's a conversation that I've shared before. We did a lot of really aversive training with her, and she was unpredictable as a result. I would have to vaccinate her just so that if there was an issue, she would absolutely have a rabies vaccine that was current. Otherwise, I was concerned that we would get sued, right? So like when it comes to titer testing, I think it's a great idea for the vast majority of dogs and cats, especially a cat that never leaves the house. But if you have a dog that's reactive, that is, unpredictable, that has a bite history, unfortunately, I feel like in a legal matter, that rabies certificate is going to be a lot better. And especially if you have assets to protect, which my family, I do. So I didn't want to risk that. So again, it's all about that personal decision based on your vet, your pet, your risk tolerance, right? Because there is a risk in titer testing that you don't have that certificate, and what your state may view that as. Are they going to quarantine your dog because you don't have an active rabies certificate?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to quarantine it at home, or are they going to quarantine it somewhere else? Like those kinds of things you don't know until something happens. So for me, for Sauce, it was always like, I don't care how old she is, she's getting her 3-year shot. Right now I have Kira, who has never bitten, never done anything, and she's 13 and she's due for her rabies vaccine in October. And I will be having that conversation with my veterinarian saying she's 13. This conversation that she and I had was 5 years ago. Hopefully she's more aware of these titer tests now. Hopefully they're more commonplace, because again, at 13 years old, to kind of calm down so hard on her immune system just doesn't feel right. Knowing that she probably is so well protected against rabies and everything. So that is a conversation that is pending for me. And I definitely feel like it's a personal conversation based on what you're comfortable with, what assets you have to protect too, because honestly, I would hate to say, you don't need a rabies certificate. And then your dog has his first bite incident, and then that becomes a huge, and that I've seen, especially if you have a professional pet sitter come to your home, you take your dog to a groomer, something like that could end up being some kind of litigation. So you don't want to risk that. And obviously speak to your care providers. Like, there are a lot of professional pet sitters that I work with, because I support professional pet sitting businesses where they're very educated. So if you presented a titer to them, they would probably be really comfortable with it. Whereas there are other people who are like brand new to the industry, have no idea what a titer is, and they're going to be like, I need a rabies cert, So really it's talking and discussing and making the decision after having asked all the questions.
Yeah, and so many things in there to unpack. One, yes, if you do feel like you need to do the rabies vaccine, please do the 3-year as opposed to the 1 year. And I like to do a detox, and there are a couple of different ways to do it. You can do homeopathic Lyssin, Lyssin. That one is specific for rabies. That homeopathy is specific for rabies. You can also use Thuja, which is
what I use.
Isn't specific for rabies and tends to be better for all of the other vaccines.
Yes.
But still effective. And don't give multiple vaccines at one time. So just do one. And I don't care if you're going to the vet every 2 weeks or every month or whatever it is. Do not give more than one vaccine at a time, because if they have a vaccine reaction, you don't know what vaccine they have a reaction to.
Yeah.
And also make sure your vet is giving it as low as possible. So if it's on the back leg, as low as possible on the back leg, because if something does happen and you have to amputate, you don't want to lose any more than you have to. So those are some things to kind of.
I've always used, after vaccines, I've also used milk thistle for liver support.
Yeah.
Is that something you still recommend?
Oh yeah, I think milk thistle is something we should be pulsing regularly, seasonally anyway.
And that's for both humans and for pets. I take it to, I had a vaccine reaction personally years ago. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about doing one at a time is because I got the flu shot and the Tdap all at the same time. And again, I'm a small person. I think I was 100 pounds at the time. And I had a huge reaction, immediate reaction. And so, excuse me, I can't tell the flu shot or the Tdap. I'll never get either one again. and that's fine. I'm comfortable with that. But I did get, the COVID vaccines. I got 3 of them for very personal reasons, and I battled with that. But I immediately detoxed. I used, bentonite clay and all the things at the site. I used Thuja, homeopathic. I took it before and after the actual vaccine. I did a few things to support myself, and I definitely did milk thistle, and I definitely think it helped body kind of even though I did feel side effects. So our pets can't tell us when they feel these things. So Nerva09 is asking milk thistle, thuja, and light. What is it? L-Y?
Listen, Lyssin is, specific for rabies. But also, just FYI, when you do have that conversation again with your vet, they can go directly to Kansas State. That is the only university in the country that does rabies titers. So whether you're going through Hemopet or you do it directly through your vet, it all goes through Kansas State. So if they have like any qualms at all, like they can literally, they have a direct line to Kansas State to get.
That's good to know. That's what I will say with my lady.
Yeah. But so I guess to kind of bring it back around to pet insurance, that's one of the big things that I wanted to get across to people is that, yes, emergencies happen. No, we cannot plan for everything. There are going to be accidents, but what we can do is take the best care of our pets possible so that at least on down the road, we're less likely to be dealing with chronic illness, degenerative diseases, unless they're genetic, which we can still do a lot in day-to-day lifestyle management to prolong or reduce the effect of genetics. Like that's like we are seeing this, all the biohacking stuff that's really popular today with humans, like literally this, not exactly the same, but very similar for our pets. We are different species, but we're all mammals. And so taking better care of our pets is above anything else. Like my biggest point is, so you're not freaked out over, oh my gosh, Nationwide is canceling 100,000 pets, right?
Well, also, let's talk about pet insurance really like globally real quick. There is pet insurance for accidents only, injury and accident. Then there's pet insurance preventative care. And I think Jessica and I, I know her well enough to know that I think she and I agree on this, is that the preventative money, because that is going to cover stuff that you may not even need. So instead of money on a policy, feed them better food, give them better care, exercise them, make sure that you're engaging them at home, enrich their lives. Because what that preventative policy is basically a bunch of vaccines that you may not even want.
And importantly, don't be paying for a policy that isn't going to cover you, because a lot of them will say, okay, your pet has to get all of these vaccines, has to get all of this
in order,
XYZ in order for the policy to even be effective. So be really careful about that too.
Yes, exactly. So the preventative is something that I think a lot of new pet parents, and if you're joining us and you just got your first pet, preventer is not that expensive that you need a policy for it. What's really expensive is injury and accident coverage. Your dog goes out the door. I had a dog who was 6 months old, Socks. She taught me so much. She went out the door, came back in the door with a broken toe, backyard. You know what I mean? She was 6 months old. These things happen. Injury, accident, you want to call it whatever you want. Bad luck, probably that. But that happens, right? And so that was like, she had to get a cast. But I don't think they do casts anymore. This was 2008. But she had to get a cast. Then she got gangrene in the cast. So then we had to do, and like, obviously this started adding up.
Yeah. Well, and so there are lots of other pet insurance companies out there. And I would imagine, considering Nationwide is the largest provider of pet insurance in the US, it's probably not far behind that a lot of other providers are going to be doing something similar. I mean, if Nationwide isn't making a profit, these other companies aren't either. Let's be real.
It's a volume business, right? At the end of the day, insurance is always going to be a volume business. And if Nation, the biggest insurer for pets, is not turning a profit, then I think anybody is. We shall see. Like I'm MetLife, and I only have my cat covered. I will see if I get any kind of communication about I'm dropping it. And I'm scheduled to interview the CEO of MetLife's pet insurance division in September. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen between now and then, but I will certainly ask as part of my interview. I feel like, what we've always said is, if I do the math, right? If you have a puppy that's 1 year old, if you have a puppy that's 1 year old, your coverage is probably going to be cheaper than somebody who has one dog who's 9 years old.
Yeah.
The older they get, the higher the cost is. So you shop around and you say, okay, it makes sense for me to pay this 2-3 years. But when you get into trouble is when you just let it and that money is just going into, their savings account rather than yours. So every year, be really careful. We're not here to tell you that insurance doesn't work or doesn't pay off. Like it did for me for many years, didn't. But it was something that I kind of analyzed as I went. And if you, prone dog like I did, who was also injury prone, then you have to be really, aware that your dog need more veterinary care than others.
Yeah.
Whereas Titan, for example, lived to 15 and a half. I saw the vet, right? Like he just didn't. We took him for his annual and that was it. He got a dental cleaning, and a lot of these things will cover dental cleanings. A lot of them won't. So know what you're getting. And when you're comparing prices, one of the things that I think people don't do is they don't call their vet to ask for prices. Like call your vet. Be like, hey, can I just pick your brain for a second? Or if when you have your annual visit, take a notebook with you and be like, dental, more or less, what can I expect? For the rabies vaccine and like heartworm testing, how much is that? Because that's pretty much all we do. We don't do any more vaccines. Other than the rabies right now, because the dogs are older and they got everything they needed when they were little. And I believe that they're I haven't titer tested them, but I believe that they're safe, especially with our lifestyles. So I've always discussed that. We've talked about this in past lives where, you kind of have to think about what they're exposed to and what they're not, and where you live and what's kind of going around there. So call your vet, ask your vet for pricing, and then say, how much do I need every year to cover these things? And you might be able to, in like 6 months, just create an emergency fund for your pet to cover those expenses. And then every year, maybe you have a bonus at work, or like I get a deposit every year around this time. And I always get Kira, her dental after that deposit comes in, just because that's, like when maybe tax time, you get a refund. That's when you use that. Instead of taking a vacation with it, you get your dog, a dental cleaning or something that you can rely on every year. Plan accordingly so that you're not spending this money that you're never going to really see again. And let's say that your dog, passes away, you have that money still. You don't need to be, creating a new fund for your next pet because you've kept this. And right now, a little financial tip, I guess, interest rates are high. So you can get money on your savings, right? So like if you're getting money on your savings, why are you sending them your money when it could be making you money in your bank? So again, just compare apples to apples and be prepared if you are Nationwide that you will be dropped. So maybe drop them first, call them and see them. And instead of that $15-20 that you're sending them, start putting that immediately into a fund, because it does look like this is only the beginning.
It does. And I mean, that's what I do. And I think we talked about this before.
Yes.
I have a separate bank account and I have automatic withdrawals multiple times a month, and I don't think about it. I don't look at it. I know that it's happening, and I don't miss it. I don't feel, I mean, I feel, we all feel it, but I've had it going on for so long now, for so many years, that it happens
Yes,
automatically. I don't have to be intentional about, I only had to be intentional about setting up those auto transfers.
exactly.
And then when I go every 6 months to get all of my pets' stuff done, I pay the bill and I go, oh, great. I look at that account and I transfer the money to pay for what I just did.
Yeah.
And then
How
it
much do
just
you
keeps going
cap it
forward.
at? How much do you hope to have in that account at all times?
Um, I mean, I like having no less than 1,500 to 2,000 in it. I
I think that's
think
really fair.
I think you're not going to get out of an ER visit less than that.
No, especially depending on where you live. I mean, we're in Texas where it's a little bit cheaper. You're in a more expensive area than I am, even though we're in Texas. But like DC, New York City, LA, you're talking probably 3,000 minimum in order to cover
Yeah.
an emergency vet bill. And I will say this, Amy H71, 8-month-old chocolate lab vet assistant suggested I get it. Still on the fence, but no, it's only getting more expensive. Personally, if I had an 8-month-old chocolate lab, I would get pet insurance. Or I would, if you don't have $1,500 already to just put in a bank account, get it for maybe the first year and start also simultaneously saving some money, because chocolate labs eat everything. He's 8 months old, or he or she is 8 months old. Their labs, I feel like, are really, these, like, obviously you could eat them up. They're so cute, but they're like really get themselves into trouble. Unless you have like a super angel chocolate lab, I would probably get it. He is trouble.
Yeah, he's trouble. Well,
But yeah,
and
I would say again, like my 13-year-old dog, probably not going to end up in the emergency vet, even though she can make bad choices. She's a dog. But an 8-month-old chocolate labs, box, golden retrievers, these are big mouthy dogs that get themselves into trouble.
yeah. And I obviously am not sponsored. This is
No,
not an
exactly.
ad, but I do think if you're in the position to have a dedicated credit card that you only pull out for veterinary emergencies, and Care Credit, they have, I mean, their interest rate is high, just like every other credit card out there, but they do always have some sort of promo going on where it's like 0% interest if you pay it in
For a
6 months,
certain amount.
sometimes 12 months. Like, so having that on hand can really
Yes.
ease your mind too. And
Yeah,
don't use it.
yeah, don't use it for just anything. But
Yeah.
I do think that having good credit helps too. Like, let's say that you right now don't have either pet insurance, you don't have a savings account for your pet. Something terrible happens, you put it on a credit card, you find another credit card with a balance transfer fee of 0 with a 0% interest for 12 months, and you pay it off slowly. Having good credit helps. That's a privilege not everybody has, so I get that. But maintaining your credit, having the option for Care Credit, having a good relationship with your vet so that they can guide you, because they may know of something that you don't know about when it comes to covering these costs, and also knowing what you're willing to do for your pet.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before, and I know it makes me sound like a horrible human being, but like, I would not do chemo for my dogs. Like, I just wouldn't. It just is not something I would do. I rescue dogs. There are so many dogs in needs of home, and I adore my dogs, don't get me wrong, and I do everything for them. But like, if it's, they have 6 months left, I'm going to give them the best 6 months, and I'm not going to, because I don't even know if I do chemo for myself, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things. But if you're the kind of person who would literally get into debt to do everything and go to the specialist like that, who will literally fly their pets anywhere, it doesn't really matter, then you need a bigger fund.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Fund, because those are very expensive things. So you really do need to, yeah, you're still paying
German
off
Shepherd.
78 ER vet to try to save my 6-year-old golden from acute kidney failure. And I hope, was it a success? I hate to even ask. I'm scared to ask.
I know.
Amy, I'm so sorry. Yeah, look for those balance trees. Wallet's really good, and if Karma, they'll send you good credit card transfer fee. You just go into their balance transfers. We've done it before where we're like, oh my God, how did we end up racking this up from XYZ? And you do a balance transfer. Right now, interest rates are so high, you have to do something. You can't just pay that 25%. Like, you will be paying that forever. So be proactive in that sense. And your policies, do the math. Make sure you're being a savvy consumer. At the end of the day, like, they'll happily take your money until they don't want your money anymore, and they're going to screw you in the process because you think you're covered. For Amy, if you've decided to go insurance, just know that it doesn't cover immediately. So do it before there is, an illness. I think it's 3 days. There's some that are a week or more. So just, if you are going to plan on doing it, do it sooner rather than later. And yeah, if you're still paying.
Uh-oh. I think you're all frozen. There, are you back? Wait. I think
My house is chaos, guys. This is utter chaos. While I'm speaking, the plumber was here. My kid fell off the bed. The other kid came running to tell me that she was really hurt. I didn't move because you know what? They're 6 and 4. They need to figure things out now. So my apologies for the chaotic live. I hope that you enjoyed the information.
yeah, I'm so sorry, Amy.
Amy says that she could not put him through anymore. It was selfish on our part. Would probably do it again. We'll look into insurance. Amy, I'm so sorry for your loss, for that experience. That sounds horrible. He was only 6. I mean, these are the things that kind of we never expect, right? And that's kind of why we're having this conversation, because these things do happen. It would be nice if everybody got to, say goodbye to their dog. And
yeah. Oh, you froze again. Are you back? I don't know. Yeah, no, it's very difficult to make those decisions. I know I've struggled with, do I do it? Do I not do it? And very, very difficult. But, you can't beat yourself up for sure, even if you're like, man, I wish I hadn't spent the money. Anyway, yes, thank you for being here, Amy, by the way. And I don't know. So, okay, next, do you have anything else before we talk about next week?
No, next week, okay. Dude, I don't know what we're going to do next week. I'm going to have to threaten. I'm going to have to say no planners. I'm going to, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm going to be
a better place that's not here.
Okay. And maybe I don't know. We could skip it if you want. I'm going to be checking out of my hotel and going to my mom's, and she doesn't have great internet. So we'll see how it goes, but
do you want to do Tuesday again instead of Monday since you're checking out? Would Tuesday be better?
We could do that.
Let's do this time next Tuesday, and I'll just figure out a situation where I'm not in the middle of the house next to the loudest plumber that ever existed.
Well, okay. And there was something that you sent me that you wanted to talk about, didn't it? Oh, emergency preparedness, hurricane preparedness.
Yes, y'all talk about hurricane preparedness and pets. Let's talk about it. I grew up in Miami, so I know hurricanes quite well. Lived through Andrew. I'm really disappointed to hear that some people in Houston were not prepared for Beryl, that just barreled through, pun intended. I am surprised. One of my clients said that some of her clients still left knowing that a hurricane was coming, left their pets at home, not knowing not knowing whether you're going to hurricane, category 1 or category 5, to leave your home locked in there. We got to talk about it. We got to, set some standards, and we've got to elevate pet parenting when it comes to emergency plan. You're going to commit to a pet. You got to commit to them even when your vacation's on the line. And So let's talk about that. I feel like I have a lot to say. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
And you guys are welcome to chime in the comments.
Yes.
As
Yes.
they say, because I'm sure there's plenty for us to judge about people who just leave their pets. I had a very good friend who's a professional pet sitter who was in New Orleans for Katrina and had to evacuate pets after people had left. You know, we've learned lessons and people still don't heed the warnings. So let's discuss that. So let's try for next Tuesday this time.
Okay.
I will probably be sitting in my mom's room somewhere. So, you know, we'll make it work.
Yeah, I don't know what I will look like, but we'll figure it out. So it's an important topic and can never be.
It is a very important topic. It's timely. There's supposed to be more storms this year than historically reported. We've already gotten some, and it's usually not this early in the season that we get big Category 5 hurricanes. So it's definitely the forecast and the reality are kind of in line this time. So we'll talk about that. Okay. And we'll see you next week, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Amy, for commenting so much. You. And Jackie, thank you for being here. Sar, thanks for being here. And Nerva09, thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome for commenting and for supporting us. And we will see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.